Hey, so listen, I'm going to make a bold prediction today. All right. So, for those of you who are here in the room, I want you to raise your hands if I'm correct when I say this. All right. Just raise your hands if I'm right. Now, for those of you watching online, all right, I want you to type a yes in the chat if I'm correct. Now, I don't know who you are, I don't know how much you make, but I know exactly what you've said before. Maybe it was just to yourself. Maybe you said this to somebody else. But I know that you've said this at least one time in your life. I can almost guarantee it. Okay? You've said this. If I could just make an extra blank, right? If I could just make an extra 20,000, if I could just make an extra 50,000, if I could just make an extra 100,000, everything will be okay, right? Yeah, I see you in the room, right? If you're online, don't be shy. You can put it in the chat. There's no judgment. But I know you've said this because I've said it too, right? I've said it too. And here's the crazy part. That is the exact sentence that is keeping millions of people financially stuck. Millions of people. And it's not for the reason that you think. Okay? So today, we're going to have a heart to heart. I'm going to teach you something. And at the end, I'm going to give you one single action that can change your life forever. Okay? Everybody good with that? Okay, good. So now imagine this. And again, I don't know how much you make. If you're online, I don't know. Those in the room, I don't know how much you all make, right? So now, for those of you who have not made this amount of money yet in your life, now imagine that you're making 300,000 to $500,000 a year. Okay, and if you've never made that kind of money before, I know what you're thinking, right? I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking your worries are over. No more worries. No more worries, right? Oh, I'm making $500,000 a year. Okay. I'm getting a nice house. I'm going on that vacation, right? Right? I'm buying that car. See, if that's the case, then why is it that there's so many high income earners in America that still feel like they're not getting ahead? And why is it that there's so many people in America that are making $80,000 to $100,000 a year and they are consistently building wealth? They're not worried about retirement. They're not worried about emergencies. They're not worried about their future. Their kids are set. And at the same time, I want you to really grasp this. At the same time, there's people making 5 times, 7 times, 10 times more money than these people, and they are constantly stressed about money. How can that be? How can that happen? You're like, Jermaine, how can you even say that? Well, I'm going to show you. Okay? Because most people think that money solves all your money problems. And that's not true. Right? If for those of you online, if you watched any of my videos, then you know it doesn't. Right? Money amplifies what you already have in place. How many of us here have heard that money amplifies who you are? Yes, right? So if money amplifies who you are, and this is true, and we know this, how come money is not going to amplify what you already have in place? It is. People just don't think that far into it, right? Money is going to amplify what you already have in place. See, once you understand what I'm about to show you, you are going to stop chasing more money and you are going to start building real wealth. Right? Because let's be honest, like most of us thought, man, if I could just make another 20,000, if I could just make another 50,000, if I could just make another 100,000, if I can just get that promotion, if I could just grow the business, if my spouse would just work. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Right? If this, if all these things happen, everything would be okay. I was the person who thought that. Okay. So I remember in end of 2019, beginning of 2020, I said this exact same thing, right? Before the world went crazy and people were fighting over toilet paper and milk, right? Before all that stuff happened, I had my business. I had my transportation business. I was doing okay. I was like, man, if I could just make another 50, if I could just make another 100, if I could just break through this goal. And guess what happened? I did it. I did it, guys. I did it. And let me tell you what was the result. Y'all ready for this? Y'all ready for the result? I took 10 months off. I took 10 months off. Granted, things shut down. I had to pivot, had to sell everything. I relocated, started completely over. Granted, it was the 10 some of the best times of my life. Not gonna lie. Like, didn't have to work. I was with my wife and my kids, and we started over. We moved across the country mid pandemic. We got rid of everything that we had. Everything. Like everything we had literally fit in a trailer. And we hauled it with our Escalade. And we started over. No furniture, a little bit of clothes, bunch of kids' toys. And we started over because I got the big goal. Right. And then it just went, I just spent it all. Right. I just spent it all. See, what I noticed as a financial professional is that when people make more money, you'll see 6 months later, 12 months later, they're not saving more. They're not investing more. They're not less stressed unless they take the time completely off, like I did. I had no stress, right? They're not less stressed. They just have nicer expenses. Why? Because they didn't build a better future. They just built more expensive habits. So don't be that person that gets an income raise and builds more expensive habits. Right? See, I want you to imagine this. And I'm barely going to use the board. So I want you to imagine that you have a bucket, right? And you have this bucket, and your bucket has holes in it. So now when you fill your bucket up with water, right? Like let's say water's going in, right? Well, guess what? Now water's coming out of these holes. And now what a lot of people say is, okay, well, if I could just have a bigger bucket, everything would be okay. So what do? They get a bigger bucket. Wow, surely, right? Surely that would solve all the problems. So now they go and they put more water from more places in this bucket. And the only problem is now they have even bigger holes. Now they have bigger holes. Yeah, they got a bigger bucket, but they have bigger holes. So what do they really do? They got themselves more expensive expenses, a more expensive bucket. More expensive bucket. And even after seeing this, people are like, oh my goodness, you know what? If I could just have an even bigger bucket, everything will be okay. So what do? They go and get a bigger bucket. I'm not going to draw it. Okay. I'll save you that. All right. I won't draw it. But that is exactly what people are doing. And income works the same way. Because income does not create new habits. It reveals the current habits that we have. Okay? The income doesn't solve poor systems. Income exposes them. That's why on this channel, there's no get rich quick tips and stuff like that. We talk systems because systems build wealth. Systems create freedom. See, a system is save yourself time, energy, and money. See, I remember when I did make more money and I kept the same habits, the same exact habits, right? Like I would make more money and then I would go spend more money and then I would get in trouble with my wife and then I would go make it up to her by spending more money. And then I would make even more money and then I would spend even more money and then I would get even more trouble and then I would go spend even more on making it up to her. And I would spend more on the kids and I would spend more on her. And it was this vicious cycle, right? It's just a cycle. because there was holes in my bucket. So all I did was go from a smaller bucket to a larger bucket. And I'll never forget when I realized and I learned about this and I said, okay, if my life is going to change, my habits are going to change. Right? Who's here read that book, Atomic Habits? It's an amazing book. I highly recommend everyone read it. Why? Because you will learn so much about you if you read it slowly and you do some journaling and you do some reflective work. You will learn so much about yourself. And I challenge you to write down your habits. See, I'm going to give you a bonus activity. Okay? I'm going to give you a bonus activity. And here it is. Here's the bonus activity. I wasn't even planning on doing this. So, you're welcome. Okay? So, write down, not MW, write down in one place, one journal, one place, just one place. It could be a note on your phone, just one note. Every single dollar you spend for 30 days. 30 days. I did this and my entire life changed. My entire life changed. You do this, I guarantee you, your entire life will change. Your spending habits will change. Your saving habits will change. Your investing habits will change. Everything will change financially for you if you do this. What I know is that 90% of you are not going to do it. Even in this room, 90% of you are not going to do it. Unfortunately, I wish you all would. But sometimes people hear things and they're like, man, that's an amazing idea. And then there's a percentage of you who are going to start to do it. And then you're going to see how annoying this actually is. Every single dollar. It's only $2. Why do I have to write it down? Write it down. Everything that comes out of your bank accounts. Everything that you spend. Every time you swipe. Every time you order online. Every time your wife orders online. Or your husband. Your spouse. Or your kids. Whoever. Every single dollar that leaves your household, write it down for the next 30 days. And I guarantee if you've never done that before, everything will change for you. Okay? You're welcome. You're welcome. Right? So, in the last few videos, we talked about a few things, right? We talked about how every single dollar should answer 5 questions. 5 questions. I'm not going to go over them now. For those of you online, you can I'll, I'll tell you in a minute, right? Then we talked about the different levels of how to think about money, right? Then we talked about how the wealthy organize their money differently. And then we talked about last week that saving is not the end all be all. I don't care how many times your mama told you to save money. My mama told me the same thing. Saving is just the beginning, right? So you put all that together, and what you see is what builds wealth. Not one magic investment, not one big payout, not a magic stock or some special stock that you need to buy at the right time and you time it and no. No. I've chased it all. I'm speaking from experience. Okay? It doesn't work. Here's what does work. It's when you build a system. When you build a system that gives every single dollar. Huh. Okay. Please, somebody turn that off. Okay. It's when you build a system that gives every single dollar a purpose. Every single dollar. Okay? Now, here's what I'll tell you. Okay. So here's what I'll say. If you want that system, it's free 99. Yes, I said free. You don't have to pay with money, but you do have to pay with your attention. You do have to pay with action. You do have to pay with your ability to keep the system. All right? Now, here's the thing. The last thing before we go, right? Imagine two people, right? Two people that they think differently. Someone with a system, someone with no system. Okay? We'll say person A has no system, person B has a system. They both make an extra $50,000. Okay? Person A says, listen, my grandparents were from Dominican Republic, so I'm going to go take a week off in the Dominican Republic and I'm going to spend 10K on vacation. And then I'm actually going to trade my car in because, I know I just got it 2 years ago, but I really, really like the newer model. Actually, you know what? I think I'll get a Tesla, right? Because Teslas are cool and supposedly I'm supposed to save money. So I'm gonna, go trade my car in. So then that's another 15K that I'm gonna spend on the car. And then you know what? I think I'll save like 5,000 because I'm supposed to save money. So I'll save 5,000, and then the rest of the money, they kind of just leave it, right? And see, person B, they have a system. They have their expenses already calculated. They have their income already calculated. They know exactly what they spend every single month. They know exactly what comes in because they did the activity, right? So they take the 50K and they say, hey, we're going to take $10,000 and I'm going to take the entire family and we're going to do a big trip, right? So guess what? They do spend also 10K on vacation. But you know what they do with the rest of the money? Because they know that they don't need to upgrade their life. They spend the rest of the 40K on growing assets that create freedom. They create more freedom for themselves. So, who do you think is going to be in a better position 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And every time this person gets a new a raise, yeah, maybe they do a little something for themselves because you have to, but not all of it. Not all of it, right? So, is earning more money good? Yes, of course it is. Is it the end all be all? Is it the solution to everything? No, it is not. So if you made another 20K, it's not going to fix all your problems. If you made another 100K, it's not going to fix all your problems. See, listen, I hope that you earn more. Please listen. I hope that you do earn more. But I hope even more so that you build a system, because a system is going to give you freedom. Because income is temporary, it can just come and go like that. How many people have we heard of that get these big checks? They win the lottery, they do this, they get this big amount of money, and then they're broke a year or two later. Why does that happen all the time? Because they don't have a system. Their habits are not in place. They're not ready for that. A system is permanent. A system is repeatable, and a system builds a habit. For those on YouTube, thank you for watching. I will link the playlist so that way you can get the entire system on all the other videos that I spoke about earlier. And I'll see you on the next one. For those of you in person, I'll start taking questions now. All right, just raise your hand.